Namaste, everyone. My name is Aldrin, and I am a part of a steering committee of CoHNA, a grassroots advocacy group dedicated to improving the understanding of Hinduism in North America. CoHNA focuses on raising collective voices on matters related to the Hindu community and educating the public about Hindu heritage and lived experiences. I would like to start with a prayer. Om Purnamadam Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So now June is celebrated as Pride Month, honoring the memory of the Stonewall Uprising in New York in 1969, a sobering reminder of how hard the struggle for equality and acceptance has been all through the time. And today we are going to discuss with panelists about their journey being part of the LGBT community and being a part of a Sanatani or a Hindu follower, and how that has played a role in their life, and what has how they have used their gain strength from their tradition and what their journey has been. And we have some interesting panelists. I'm so excited to have them join the stage today. So we will be talking about their journey, their life, and how they relate to Hinduism, and how Hinduism has helped them in their journey of them understanding about themselves, their identity, and how they navigate in the society where they live in. So let's please give a warm welcome to the panelists. We have our Acharya-ji, Harsha-ji, and we have Namaste, Harsha-ji.
Namaste, Namaste ji.
So good to have you today. I'm so excited to talk to you about your journey and all the wonderful things that you do that we are so proud of. And we have Deepthi-ji. Deepthi,
Namaste.
namaste. So good to see you again. And I'm so excited to talk about your journey and your experience in the society and Dharma. And I would like to talk more about it. And Anjali ji. Namaste, Anjali ji.
Namaste, Aldrin ji.
Anjali ji is going to have a extensive experience in their field, so they're going to explain to us and make us understand a little bit more about what life is as a Kinnar and what does that mean in our society, in our community, and how does it help us uh, understand basically not only being in the LGBT community but also as a Sanatani. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining. So I would like to go and ask each of you to give a 2 minute intro for yourself. Anjali ji, you want to start?
Sure. Namaste, sabko. My name is Anjali Rimi. My pronouns are she, her, they, them. I'm a proud South Asian, Indian, Kinnar, transgender, immigrant, and a woman of color, and a unapologetic Hindu. I have been in the North Americas for over 2 decades, and my journey to exist in all those identities has been under a lot of scrutiny every single day of my existence, and I imagine it will be for the rest of my life. But this Pride Month, I really want to share with you that I come with having an understanding of what my culture and my faith has helped me center my existence as a transgender person. And I am involved in many advocacy spaces, but I also want to uplift those that are in the South Asian diaspora that are LGBTQ and are looking to belong. And I want to let you know that you do belong. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for that introduction. Pandit Acharya Harshaji, would you like to go next?
Yes, definitely. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me over here. Namaste to all of you. My name is Hersh Khetrapal. I live in Chicago, a suburb of Chicago. We have a ashram over here, which is called Yog Sadhana Ashram. And the main ashram is in India, in Punjab. So over here, I do teach yoga, every aspect of yoga. And at the same time, I have a daughter who is a lesbian. And through her, I learned more about homosexuality. So, any question you have, you can ask me during this interview about how do I feel as a mother and how do I perform the same sex marriages also. And thank you very much for having me. Namaste.
Thank you so much, Hershji. Deepthi ji, would you like to go?
Sure. Namaste, everyone. I'm Deepthi Rao. I live in the Bay Area. I've been in the US about 12 years, and I'm an Indian immigrant, and I identify as a lesbian. I have been in the tech world since I came here, and throughout my journey of coming out and also being myself, I found that my Hindu Dharma really centered me and kept me going. It really built the resilience in me, and I'm really really grateful for my upbringing and my foundation, which helped me stay centered throughout my uh, hard journey. So I would love to share. I see that there's a lot of misunderstandings in terms of what Hinduism is, especially living in the Bay Area. You see a lot of conflicting messages, and I would love to use my place being in the intersection of the LGBTQ community and as a practicing Sanatani to help spread the right message about our dharma.
Thank you so much for that. And it's wonderful that there are three different people representing three different part of the Sanatana tradition, and very welcoming and understanding. And I'm glad that you guys joined, and then I think a lot of people will benefit from the stories that you have to tell. So can we go to Anjali ji? Anjali ji, could you please talk to us about your upbringing, your own experience of being a kinner? When did you realize, and like what made you realize that you're a kinner, right? I would like to talk about this subject with Arsh ji when we get a minute, but I would like to hear from you.
Thank you, Aldrin ji, and बहुत आभारी हूँ हर्ष जी and Deepthi ji to share this space with you. Thank you so much. Happy Pride. I could write, I could make this whole panel about myself, but I will try my best to do justice to my journey, which I still am on as a trans person born in a male body. I was made to realize that I was not like everybody else as early as 7 years of age. I think my mom, who has always stood to be my biggest ally in my life, knew much more sooner. She gave birth to me. Her moms know her kids, right, Hershey? Um,
Yes.
so she it was very difficult. We came from different worlds. My parents, my dad is from the West Bengal side of the country. My mom is from the south. They came from different religious backgrounds. My mom, much later in her life, when she was in her teens, was when she moved to, or she came back to Hinduism. My dad came from a fisherman Dalit village. And so I had very interesting upbringing. So neither of them understood what transgenderism was. Neither did I know. All we knew that was the chakka and the hijrah and all the offensive terms that were used for those of us that are in the non-binary, which is neither male nor female. I really came to tell myself that I would become and blossom like a beautiful flower one day when I hit that certain age in my life, but that didn't happen. And that's when I had the greatest shock of my life, that I was born in the wrong body. And transgenderism has nothing to do with what's between my legs, it's got to do with what's in my head and what's in my mind. And that's how we are all born. We don't become transgender or LGBTQ overnight. That is who we are. That's how we come into this world. And so I really pushed against all the grains of society that said you don't belong, you don't behave like a boy, you don't behave like you can be a woman because you're not anatomically such. So I really struggled, and I was also very vulnerable to many people's sexual predatory activities, from uncles to neighbors. And I was trigger warning. Um, you know, by the time of um, 14, I was faced with multiple sexual assaults, rapes, and discrimination. I was thrown out of buses. I was pelted with stones. So much happened. And as a Kinnar, which, there's a great article anybody should Google and read, why transgender is not a term that can really reflect what Kinnar means, or any trans third gender identity in the South Asian diaspora, especially in India. Because Kinnar essentially came from Apsaras, came from the Hindu mythological Vedic times to the times of the kingdoms before the invasions, where we were known to be the ones that were doing the music, the dance, the entertainers, and we were the ones that were actually helping be every human being be closer to God. We were the intermediary between the Bhagwan and all the human beings. And so Kinnar is synonymously sometimes said to be used as Hijrah. The Hijrah system came much later into India and to the South Asian diaspora. It is powerful and needs to be respected, but it comes with a system of having a very close knit community. Whereas Kinnars, if I may compare them, are more like independent individuals who are living off of entertainment and blessings that we give to folks. Today, the Kinnar community is relegated to begging in the trains, in busties, going from shop to shop, and asking for alms, which is misconstrued as begging. Going back to my story, that is who I thought I knew I was. But my mom would cover my eyes, and my brothers and my parents would say, "You cannot be like them." But then, when everything was out in the open, my centering was the Yellama temple I grew up in front of. That is where I saw men dressed as women and the goddess Ammavaru coming into human beings, irrespective of whatever gender they were. And that's when I started realizing that, oh, I can exist. I was here for a reason. I am the Ansh of Ardhanarishwara, or whoever it may be. And I pulled myself together from the age of about 14 till 26. I had the worst time of my life trying to transition 4 times over. And it was only when all failed and the hate came right to our doorsteps and we were attacked. We had to leave our home and move 50 kilometers away. And then my mom was like, "You cannot be here, you will be killed." And that's when I left India. And it wasn't until another 6 years later that I could fully transition. And even as existing as a trans woman, I had to give up a whole lot of my South Asian identity, especially of proudly and publicly saying that I'm a Hindu, because we exist in a world, as Deepthi kind of touched on, in the Bay Area, where I cannot be both of those. And that seems to be such a fallacy and uh, such a easy proposition for folks who are trying to bank on this very dangerous way. And I can tell you that all those flashbacks from the age of 14 have been coming back to me in the last 4 years. Mind you, that I did not come out as a trans woman for 12 years because of everything I faced. And only in the last 7 to 8 years, I have been very much in the forefront of advocacy. And I do have the support of my parents. My parents live with me, and their security and safety is paramount to me. So I have to not be the self-sacrificing activist. But at the same time, as a Kinnar trans woman, I've also been working myself back to find my roots, going back to Bharat and spending time there with my communities. Beyond my transgenderism, I realized that there are other identities of mine that are currently a threat and being erased every single day. But finally, I'll just say that, transgenderism and of my existence, I don't know. I really don't know how else I would have existed if I wasn't born in the Hindu Dharma, because here's where I understood that I did not need to be that singular. I could be many things. We have over 600,000 gods, and I was one of each of them, an inch of my body. And I truly believe that's how I am here today. I come from a household that's not wildly religious to begin with, and yet I have found my centering in my dharma, in my faith, and that is truly what has let me get past so many suicide attempts, so much assault, and so much discrimination, getting fired from my work, having to leave America and start somewhere else all over in Canada. I could go on, but I'll pause there and thank you again for this space. I'm trying not to choke up, but this space is so important.
Anjali, thank you so much for your strong testimony. Appreciate that. I could understand your struggles, and thank you so much for being strong and being in faith and understanding that you are accepted, you are part of the much bigger universe. And I really appreciate you telling us the story. And I will come back to you in a second about the story about the Kinnars and the community in India. But I would like to go to Hershji, Panichi, I mean Acharyaji. Um, like Anjaliji's what she was talking about in our tradition, that she found her strength in Elama temple, and she found herself, her identity through the Dharma. Could you just talk about like the nuances that we have in our tradition that is that allows us to reach our own higher potential, regardless of how you identify yourself? And it's interesting, and it's fascinating journey to understand this part. I would love for you to expand on this one and let us know. I know you have a lot more hats that you wear, but I would like, as Acharya ji, to just talk about this a little bit before we get into a lot more things that you do. Thank you.
Sure. Let me first of all tell you, I grew up in an ashram in India. I was born in an ashram. My own biological father is my Gurudev ji also. So whatever I learned from him. Uh, Ever since I was little, we studied Mahabharata also, of course, Bhagavad Gita, Ramayana, Upanishads, meditated, had almost every other day, a deep conversations with him on a regular basis. When you use the word dharma, to me, I think he's the one who explained what dharma is for us. Dharma is who we are in essence, which is Atma, which is part of Paramatma. Some people call it self, some people call it soul. But this is what our dharma is. To know ourself, that is a dharma. And soul, in his words, does not have a gender. It's part of God. And in that sense, whether we are in a transgender body, or in a lesbian body, or a gay body, or a male body, female body, body is just encasing. We are the soul, we are the Atma. And as a human being, this is what we need to experience over here, who we are. Let me talk a little bit about my daughter. She was 19 and in a Babson college, it's a business college in Boston. One time she came home, and in our ashram, every Sunday we have a satsang. After the satsang, some people were talking, and this was like almost 20 years ago. Some people were not talking very respectfully about the homosexuality. And I just happened to look at my daughter's face. I saw some sadness there. When everybody left, I asked her, I said, Priya, I saw the sadness in your eyes. What's the matter? She sat with me and my husband also. She said, Mom, I'm still figuring it out who I am. I went to a very conservative school so that I can date the boys, but I can't. It's not in me. So we had a little conversation, and then I told her, I said, Priya, you are my daughter. We love you no matter what. She hugged us, and she was very, very comfortable. And she even said that, I'm so pleased to have parents like you. So then she went back after that break. I think it was a spring break. Little bit after that, I found out, she told me that she is in love. It was a love at first sight. She said it's a soulmate. And they've been together for the last 17 or 18 years now. Got married. In fact, I performed her marriage as the first same sex marriage in Martha's Vineyard. And that is also an interesting story because I was performing the weddings. I have done all like interracial marriages and not the same sex marriages. So they wanted me to do the wedding. So I said, I got to ask permission from my guru because that is a tradition. Something you do, you get blessings or permission from a guru. So I was going to India. I went to India. My father, my Guru Devji, he was sitting on the bed and I just sat on the floor. That is a tradition. And I said, I need to talk to you about something. And I explained. He just looked at me. And he was at the age of 93 at that time, 93 or 94. He left the body at the age of 95. So, few years before that. He listened to, he knew Priya, he knew Rebecca also, because Rebecca visited the ashram in India too, some times ago. He just looked at me, he said, they love each other. Loving somebody is godly, it's divine. As parents, you are okay with it. Rebecca's parents are okay with it. Where are you going to be doing the wedding? It's legal. What is your problem? So, in a very matter of fact statement, very nicely, he just said that distribute rasgullas. It is a happy occasion. So, for me, growing up in that kind of a environment and having a guru who looked at things from a higher perspective, and that higher perspective is Dharma. That is substratum for all of us. So, and now, even now, when I do weddings, I have done many, many same sex marriages. All I see is love between two people, commitment between two people, growing together every which way, and learning about yourself that you are the soul. That is the essence of this life. And that's why, right from the beginning, I did not have any problem having a daughter who's a lesbian. In fact, almost every other day I talk to somebody and help somebody with these teachings of our Vedas. That we are all one. We got to find this unity between the diversity. And that is what Dharma is. And thank you very much for having me over here again. Um, and any other comment or question if somebody.
Oh,
Thank you.
thank you, Harji. There's so much to unpack there. I want to come back to you because I
Sure.
mean, what a wonderful thing that you have done for your daughter and the weddings. Oh my God, the wedding! I want to talk to you about the weddings, but I will come right back to
Sure.
you. I want to just get
Definitely.
Deepthi's story in. Deepthi, please go ahead and tell me a little bit about your journey, all the way from India to America, and your acceptance of yourself, and how your like interaction with others now, and what do you see in society as an issue or something. Then I would like to go back to Anjali ji and Hersh ji to get their input on all the things that we have questions about.
Sounds good. So I grew up in South India. I'm from Bangalore, and I was a part of. I grew up in a very normal, middle class, conservative upbringing. My family is pretty religious. We're pretty close knit. So I always knew that I was different, but I was hoping that it would change. And then, so I kind of brushed it under the carpet for the longest time. And then I moved to the US when I was around 25, 26. And that's when I was able to kind of get the space to ponder. And I realized that, yes, I do like women. So I'm not straight. So I'm a lesbian. So it was after hearing Anjali ji's story, definitely like mine was a little bit more of, self acceptance and, getting acceptance from my family and society. But thankfully, my family and everyone has been, it hasn't been as tumultuous, but it's been more of a journey inward. When I came out to my family, they didn't know any other person that was gay or a lesbian, and so they had to undergo a lot of confusion and stress in order to understand this whole concept. Like Anjali ji was saying, in India back then in the early 2000s, all the media surrounding lesbians or gays were all very derogatory, or they used to make fun of things in the movies. So my family was worried that that I would get ridiculed, so they wanted me to be safe and hence not like come out in the open, don't talk about it, just to keep me safe and protect me. So that was the that was kind of the environment that I had sustained for the longest time. And I can see why that was the case, because not everyone in India had the and it was still illegal to be gay or a lesbian back till 2018. So it took me a good 6 7 years to come out and accept it myself, and then I had to do the same with my family, and for them it took another 5 6 years to be kind of okay with it. But even now I'm not like fully open. I don't talk about it as much with my extended family. So it's still like keep it to yourself. No one has like ostracized me, but you're not really it's not the same as being a straight person in a straight wedding. So it's still a little bit hush hush, and then not everyone wants to talk about it, so just keep that part aside. And I think that's the case with India. So throughout this journey, it's hard, like being alone, being in the US, going through all this, and I didn't have a partner, so it was just me undergoing all this alone. All through this time, my upbringing as a Hindu and my dharmic upbringing really helped me. So I would pray every day, chant Vishnu Sahasranama. My mom is a big believer in Vishnu Sahasranama, and that really gave me a lot of strength. So chanting that every day helped me kind of center myself and just gain the strength to go through this when there was no light at the end of the tunnel as well. So that process really, really helped me, even when I didn't have anyone supporting me for the longest time, when even my family was undergoing their own journey to accept me as I am. I think the belief in our dharmic principles really helped me go through. And I also found art of living, where I started doing the Sudarshan Kriya, and that also really helped me understand. Like Harshji was saying, you're more than just your body. You're a soul, and again, soul has no gender. So all of those concepts really, experientially feeling that really happened once I started doing my regular Sudarshan Kriya and meditation practices. So the dharmic foundation, I don't think I would have been able to. I think through this journey, being centered in definitely our dharmic principles is what gave me the biggest strength. And and sometimes when I see people that like Anjali ji was saying, in the that don't understand the true essence of dharma and reduce it to some negative things, that really really it makes me feel like we need to do more in order to help bring this knowledge to others as well.
Deepthi ji, thank you so much for sharing your emotional journey, and it's wonderful. It's so wonderful because our pain really gave us our wisdom. You see, our pain really gave us our strength to come and explore not only about us, about the whole entire world and how it functions and what really it is. And it's a common theme that is running regardless of you're a lesbian or a gay man as myself or Kinnar as Anjali ji, that our this adventure I would like to call instead of a negative one as being about not only about self-discovery. I mean, in our tradition, in our Shastra, it says "Yato Pinda Tato Brahmanda." So, understanding ourselves, we're understanding the universe. And that changes. The reverse gaze changes everything because once you understand yourself, it becomes easier to understand the world, why there are hate, why people have that hate. Do they really hate or is that ignorance? All of these questions. And I would like to come, I want to talk about that to Anjali ji, but I would like to ask this question to Acharya ji. Acharya ji, my question is there a place in our tradition, in our Shastra, where it gives, like you talked about Atma, is there something that says that this wholesale condemning of uh, LGBT, Atutiya Prakriti, let's say, because that's the word that we can use for now, as what it is mentioned in our Shastras. Could you just speak a little bit about that, if you can?
See, I study more the philosophy part, like the Upanishads and the Bhagavad Gita and Yoga Darshan. Over there, they really don't talk about this at all. They talk about only the Atma, and they say that we are the soul, and we need to experience that we have soul. But when we look at the epics, in epics there are stories. There have been historically many characters or many kings also. Even look at in Mahabharata, who was Vichitra Virya? Remember that? Vichitra Virya. From the name itself, you can see that he was not straight. He was a homosexual. And we all know many others also. And you talk about Kinnar. Arjun was a Kinnar in that 13th year of that exile. He became a Kinnar in that kingdom. So there have been many examples like that. I'm sure you all have read about it. But philosophically, and especially for me, they say the Vedas words are the ultimate word. And beyond Veda's word is your Guru's word. For me, when my Guru said it's okay, it was okay. No need for any more research. And especially when I see my daughter, every which way, I cannot have a better daughter than her. Whether it's a respect for me, helping the ashram, taking care of the 3 children, or taking care of the wife also. Every which way, or in the nation, she's the owner of this company, which is a socially responsible company. So takes care of the society in a very big way, actually. So how can I say that something is wrong with her? And another thing, creation is done by God. We got to remember that fundamental. And we all say God is perfect. So if we say that homosexuality is wrong, we are saying God created something wrong. And how can a perfect God create something wrong? Logically, it doesn't even make sense. So God has created us all to experience different things, to become whole again. Again, going back to that mantra which we started this dialogue with, Om Purnam Ada Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Udachyate. God is whole, it's complete, it's perfect. So, uh, these are the, this is like a basis of my understanding of this all. There's no question about it at all. I always tell people who come to me, the two people living lovingly together, respecting each other, aiming for the highest, no matter which gender, that is perfect life. Otherwise, two heterosexual people can be fighting with each other, hurting each other. That is a sin. Love is never a sin. Love is a virtue which all need to go for. Okay?
And Hershey, there is this story about Queen Madalasa in Markandeya Purana that she talks about Shuddhosi Buddhosi Naranjanosi. It's a beautiful lullaby that she sings to her children when they're born. It's a wonderful poem that I love. I urge people to go and study your own traditions. You will find so much. And that basically, when I was in termination, that was the one that helped me a lot because she says you are not you the five elements that makes up your body is not you. Why are you crying about this?
Yeah.
Remember, you're much you should do see nothing can touch you. You're much higher than that. You have attained that potential. In order to attain that potential, you have to go through all of it. It's like taking a shower, right? You have to put on the soap, but soap is not going to clean you. You have to put the water on. The water is done, and then you have to dry yourself. So there's a lot of this sadhana has to be done, and it is all in our shastras. And if we go and look for it, it is there. And I think, do you agree that only people who don't understand or ignorant to what we have in our shastras, who just randomly think about things and just make these comments about what is right, what is wrong, what is bad, what is good, and things like that? Do you agree with that statement?
Yes, of course, of course. Yes. We need to, with the help of the knowledge, we can remove the ignorance. So, ignorance makes us narrow minded. Ignorance makes us think that our way is the only way. With the knowledge, we have to expand our horizon. See, that's why this term guru itself, I'm going back to that again. Guru really means a remover of ignorance. That is the literal meaning of a guru. Gu means darkness, and ru means remover, and darkness means ignorance. And this is ignorance when we say somebody is wrong. Okay, we got to just expand our thinking a little.
Anjali ji, I want to come to you now. Arshji was talking about Kinnar's Brahmanara was Arjuna being Kinnar, and many other that are in our tradition, like Mohini. We spoke about that last time when we had this conversation. I want to touch on that. We have um, in Dharma at least. I know there's a lot of ignorance also part of that people, but in tradition itself, Lakshmi Narayan Tripathi is the leader of the 13th Akhanda, the Kinnar Akhanda now, right? It is a part of the Dharma tradition now, right? So, do you think that I mean, there were a lot of talks about it within the other akhadas to see if that should be or should not be, but ultimately they accepted it, right? So, do you think that there is a way in tradition going forward in Dharma that Kinnars have their place in the Dharma as every other tradition that exists within the Dharma?
There is nothing to be denied of our existence in Dharma in the history of the land. And so I really sincerely hope that if the human mind, because we are puny little mortals, can actually understand that Angikam Bhuvanam Yasya means Ardhanarishwara, the Lord Shiva, says, my body is the entire universe. He does not say, I am a man. And when you look at Amba Shambhavi Bhadrakali, Uma Parvati Kali Haimavati, there is an amalgamation of Shiva and Parvati and Durga and Kali all in one sentence. That is enough premise for somebody like me to exist and believe that despite all that I have gone through, there is my belonging, there is my centering. I don't know how else you would be able to fight that logic. But I also strongly believe that it can only happen in our dharma only when each one of us, Hindus or not, can go back to our roots, ask ourselves, what is it that you have heard on this panel that Hersh has said, Deepthi has said, and you are like, I don't really know that. Oh, okay, interesting. Who it's Vichitra, you know, Virya, like understand our culture. And we have been polluted by colonization and many other aspects that have took us away from that dharma. And I could not sit here and tell you that ignorance only begets ignorance, and we have to be better human beings. See, as a Kinnar, as a transgender woman, I could very easily depart from this faith that has this dharma, this understanding that I have learned on my own. Again, I don't come from a very religious family, and my parents, I have very much existed in other faiths and religions, and I have utmost respect for them. But my challenge is when I am required to check one of my many identities at the door. And let me tell you something. I always existed as a Hindu. I'm 42 years old. I never existed always in my life as a transgender, a Kinnar person, because I didn't have an opportunity until later in life to transition. And even after I transitioned, I faced so much discrimination. I was left homeless. If anybody knows the San Francisco airport, I was living under a bridge there. And Deepthi's seen me for the last 20 years. But I think there is something we have to unpack here where, I have never left my faith and being a Hindu, but being an open LGBTQ person seems to be a deadly combination that I almost get death threats every single day. Because we have so far departed from being human beings. And one of the key ingredients of being human beings is to be attached to whatever your belief system is. And my belief system is that of Hinduism and that of me existing within those confines, which are so expansive. Purna Jagat, Purna Mevaya, like the entirety of the universe. And that is how I prevail, whether it's in my transgender community as an advocacy leader, as an activist, or whether I am in Hindu communities. That is how I prevail. So I think, yes, we have an opportunity. We have some glimmer of hope in understanding and raising that awareness. But it's high time those of us actually in the North America, just like what CoHNA's mission is, that need to realize that we have to come together. And I don't mean like, mobilize and get united and start doing advocacy. Each one of us wants to make our homes, make our tech jobs, make our monies, bring up our kids. But please, this is my appeal to not stay in ignorance.
Wonderfully said. Thank you so much for that. And Deepthi ji, I'll come to you in a second. I just have two things that I wanted to talk to Acharya ji about. Acharya ji, I really have, since I've heard that you do weddings of LGBT, and you said that at least 10% of the weddings that you have done so far are LGBT weddings, which are amazing. Like, I don't know how many other tradition people can say that, oh, 10% of my weddings are LGBT. I am so in awe of you, and thank you so much for being such a supporting part of our community. And we need more people like you to do the right thing as dharma, uh, as it were. And I would like to know. Um, so please tell me your first wedding. How did it go? Why did you chose to do that wedding? And in your wedding, is it only Hindus who get married? Other things that you have interracial weddings, inter-religious weddings? If you can enlighten me on that one, and after that, I want to ask you. I will ask you so that I can be quiet, so you can tell me more things. I
Yes.
also want to know, as a mother of a LGBTQ person, what would you advise other mothers and fathers and relatives who are watching this, who we may watch this later on? What would you advise how to sort of come to understanding of what LGBT is, and how they can be supportive? It would be wonderful if you can just enlighten us with that. Thank you.
Yeah, first of all, about the weddings. Uh, as I said earlier, it started out with my own daughter's wedding. And then some of my daughter's friends, when they found out, and they were over there also at the wedding, and in a few years it became legal also all over America. So people started calling me. And there was an article also in New York Times about 6 years ago. I did a wedding in Chicago. It was between a Bengali boy and a Gujarati boy. And the parents were there. Of course, it was just like a regular wedding. I mean, it was a beautiful, beautiful wedding. Um, all the elements in there. So not just only at the wedding time we do the Jayamala and we have a fire ceremony and we do the fairas, all those things, the shapat, and I did. But even before that also there was a Ganesh Puja in their house also. The Gujarati parents, they wanted PT also. I did that too. So all elements were in there. Um, I have done I would say about in the proximity of 20, a little bit maybe more than that, same sex marriages. And it's not even any advertisement, it's a word of mouth. One person finds out and they tell others. So that's how people are coming to me. And I really feel so fulfilled when I perform their weddings. Uh, it's the same Vedic way. But there are some marriages where I have done fusion also. If one partner is not a Hindu, so I have added some Jewish part in there or some Christian part in there too. But if they are both Hindus, it's all Hindu marriage. So it takes about 45 minutes to an hour to do the wedding, and the same thing I do for the other marriages also. But it's extremely fulfilling. I really enjoy doing it. To me, I think. I consider this as a God's work to bring two people together so that they can be good citizens over here and help others also. Okay, so very fulfilling. And your second question about the parents, I do talk to parents on Zoom also. I do counsel parents. I answer their questions. I put them at ease. I tell them it's okay. I am a daughter of a lesbian. I'm a mother of a lesbian daughter, and I have another daughter also and son also. All three kids are same to me. I don't look at my lesbian daughter any less or more. As a mother, I created her. I took part in it. So I should be the first one to love her, accept her. It's just like acceptance takes you to the next level then. It's okay. So every parent who comes to me, I just spend some time and talk to them. In fact, before I do the wedding, most of the parents, they come to me And then they feel comfortable with it, especially when they find out that, hey, I have a daughter too. So maybe that was the reason Priya came to me, so that I can tell others that it's okay, it's all right. So talking it out, because most of the people are afraid what will others say. That is the main thing. Will they make fun of us? Just like I think Deepthi, you said that like uh, they will ridicule you. You got to just get to know, just have confidence in yourself, and especially when your parents are with you, and especially afterwards you find a partner also. You have a family, just like normal family. And another thing you mentioned, which is very true in Priya's case also, this firm foundation in the religion, in the God, in this philosophy. It's almost like an anchor. Anchor. You got to hold on to that anchor, because that anchor cannot be taken away. Outside acceptance can taken away. Sometimes it's illegal, some places it's not legal. But when we have the strong anchor to hold on to, then nobody can shake it. And I think that's what has helped Priya and Rebecca. They have learned Bhagavad Gita from me many times. Even now, they have a little temple in their home. They are teaching all that to their children also. Okay, so I think I should give a chance to others also to speak.
Thank you, Anjali. It's always wonderful to hear from you, and thanks for being the pillar in our community. I hope we would see more of you and hear more from you, and more involvement of you in our community. That would be wonderful. Deepthi, I want to just steer a little bit away from it. And now that we talked about wedding, so in India, there is actually a case now that a couple that are married, that they're taking it to Supreme Court because it's still not accepted. The reason being that India is such a complicated, nuance, full of nuance society, that there are so many different rules, so many different system for different traditional people, right? Like Christians have their own, Muslims have their own marriage law, Christians have their own marriage law, certain different tribes of Hindus have their own marriage law. So it becomes very hard in a place like India to have this kind of thing unless there is one civil code that accept all under one way, right? So, like, I mean, you do a lot of work with Dharma, and with the progressive forwarding of them, because Dharma is progressive, right? It's not behind. You go back 2,000 years ago and pick up any scripture you read, and you will be flabbergasted to learn, wow, they thought like this 2,000 years ago. So what do you think is happening? How colonization, and you remember 377 was the article that was put by the British. We're not fighting the Hindu Pandit. And Anjali ji, I'll come back to you about Manjama that we talked about. But this part, how do you think, what do you think is going on? What is happening there? How are things shaping up? Do we will we come to a consensus where, like, where the we decolonize ourselves and understand what our tradition has been?
That's a great question, definitely loaded. But I'll try my best to bring my understanding of the situation. So, like you mentioned, Dharma is progressive. Definitely, I think we have some audiences agreeing as well. So, the at the very core, it is the most inclusive framework to live your life, accepting of all forms of life, all forms of sexual, not just sexuality, right? Like all forms, everything is accepted in the dharmic framework. uh, Unfortunately, centuries of colonization has muddled the waters, and so there's the political angle and there's the social angle. So let me touch upon the political angle. Of course, is where a lot of our laws are just an offshoot of what the British laws were. When they left us, Britain has progressed a lot over the years after they left India, but India is still stuck with those archaic laws that were made 75 years ago. So a lot of change in these laws is being driven by society. For example, 377 was abolished mainly because of societal pressure, right? Like there were all these petitions that were filed that put pressure on the government and the Supreme Court, and it reached that mass momentum, and then we came to a place where the Supreme Court had to step in and say, yes, this is not constitutional. We are going to remove it. So the same thing applies to marriages as well. So we've come to a place where yes, you won't be thrown in jail or ridiculed for being gay or lesbian, which is definitely progress. But the normalization and acceptance of this as a form of life, as an alternative form of life, but as normal as heterosexual marriage, I think is still is happening in pockets, but it's not fully mainstream yet for society to accept. And I think the same thing happens even in the US, right? Like if you live in the coast, like if you're on the east, in New York or California, it's very common to see gay couples, lesbian couples adopting. Kids have friends whose parents are lesbians or gay, so even for kids it's very normal. Versus if you go to some of the more inner pockets, it's still not as normalized. Like some people are even scared to come out there in the Midwest or something. So I think even in India, that it's slowly coming to a place where normalization in the society has to happen. Uh, this is not left to just fringes of the society where, say, a very famous actor or a fashion designer is gay, but no, normal engineers and doctors and lawyers and normal people like you and me being gay and lesbian is to normalize that is still an ongoing process. This is where again, like we should revert to our dharmic roots, where again acceptance of all forms of life, as long as you're not creating harm, and acceptance of uh, you as a soul rather than a body. All of those will definitely help bring in and strengthen the normalization process. Another thing I wanted to add was in this gap. So all of us as LGBTQ people have faced this void for a certain period where you were still being accepted, or you were accepting yourself, or your family and your society was still accepting you. And thankfully for me, like I always had my family with me, whether I was openly gay or not, and I had this very strong dharmic foundation that my family instilled in me. So that, like Harshji said, was the anchor. But for 90% or more of the community, when they are in this process of questioning and in the pain where they're super alone and lonely, and they do not have this dharmic framework or this belief system to go back to, they actually there is a big void, and in that period of loneliness is where they're looking for support and comfort, and they join these LGBTQ movements. And unfortunately, they have been kind of politicized in a very opposite way. In India, if you see, and even here, like they have been taken over by the ultra leftist forces that have an agenda of their own, that do not really, even though our dharmic framework is the one that's actually super inclusive and accepting of, say, all forms, like the tritiya, the third gender, and all of us, like dharmic framework is the one that provides acceptance and inclusion. But yet, ironically, the LGBTQ movement has been taken over by the far left political forces that have created this conflict. So I say this, that I had to come out twice: once as a lesbian to my Hindu family, and then to my LGBTQ family in the US. I had to come out as a Hindu, and I think I was ostracized more for the latter by the LGBTQ community, which claims to be all inclusive, all accepting. I was ostracized the most for being a Hindu rather than being a lesbian. My family is still super accepting of me. My Hindu family, my very, very religious family that prays twice a day. I do too, and nothing. So they are still more accepting of me than the super inclusive LGBTQ family, because because what, like, I refuse to leave, check my Hindu identity at the door. So that's the state where we are in, and so I think we need to really examine why that is happening. And I think the way forward would be for Hindus to provide a supportive framework for the LGBTQ community. Otherwise, we are at the risk of, you know, alienating them, like, which it's already happened to a large extent. But if we as a Hindu society don't provide that support and framework, they're going to go looking and they will get hijacked by these ultra leftist forces. So I think, and I'm very, very grateful for CoHNA for providing this platform, so that now we can create this dharmic support system for the community as well.
Really well said, and you covered everything, and it is so true. The reason that I don't belong to any part of the LGBT, organization is because I was told that I'm not welcome, because I said I don't have to compromise my identities. If somebody comes to my house who is a vegan, I would be happy to provide vegan meal, right? If they, I had a person who one day he drove by and he was driving his car, and suddenly he stopped right in front of my house, and he removed his shoes and he opened his trunk and he started doing the mass there. And I told him, why are you doing that? Come in my house. Go in the downstairs, go do what you got to do. I the Dharma never teaches you to be hateful or the others, right? It's just that it's you, whatever makes you closer to God, follow that. Because when you try to follow to get too close to God, you will never have hatred in you, right? So I don't have hatred in you. You can be whatever you want to, but don't hate me, because
Exactly.
I will stand up. It
Right.
is important for every Hindu to stand up and say, you will not do that.
Right.
Because it's very important, dharma rakshati rakshita, right? And this one, dharma, has protected everybody. So thank you so much for saying that. And Anjali ji, there is a question for you from the audience. They want to know, do you get death threats from the LGBT community because you're Hindu? They wanted to clarify.
Um, I I really want to uplift you, Deepthi. We belonged in those communities until we came out as Hindu. And I have to be very careful of what I say here because I've already been displaced twice in the Bay Area. I live very far now because there were direct threats to me and my parents. There were nooses put around our photos and circulated on the internet. And so the answer to the question is yes. Just like Deepthi said, I went to all these spaces as a Hindu always. My sari, my bindi, my dresses. I'm a performer. And these very same spaces that gave me, अच्छा ये राइस बच गया तुम लेके जाओ हमारे पास पैसे नहीं हैं आज के लिए परफॉर्मेंस के लिए लेके जाओ. They gave me $50. But when I started becoming in the lead and stood up for my South Asian transgender Kinnar Hijrah sisters and siblings, especially during the pandemic, through the organization I worked through with, which I can't even mention because it's again become a huge threat to our existence because I'm the co-founder of it. We saved over 90,000 Hijrah Kinnar lives everywhere, including India. But that was too much to digest. How can a Hindu transgender Kinnar woman be in the forefront of our LGBTQ movement? And that too actually center the trans Hijrah Kinnar folks who we have told to stay on the sidelines. I was part of the Bay Area. I was part of the American queer movement 20 years ago. And I was told you cannot sit on a board, you cannot exist, you're not allowed to speak, don't expect us to give you gender neutral restrooms because you're transitioning doesn't mean that we all have to come to you. From that to this, and now when they see me in the forefront, they just cannot get with the agenda because I am not part of their agenda. The agenda is to push us out. And I really never understood until like I started begging and knocking on people's doors to help my South Asian trans Hijrah sisters and brothers, that this was so paramount that I didn't have to come out as Hindu. I was always that, but all of a sudden it became such an issue that how the combination of those two, of being a trans and being a Kinnar and being a Hindu, no, that's not allowed. That's not allowed. And it started with doxing. It started with canceling me, which is a huge thing that happens, and then it moved on to telling me that they had guns, they're calling, and like, it took me back literally to the time when I was at my 10th class graduation in school, and I was raped and I was thrown in a gutter, drainage bolte hain, for 2 days. And then the hate and the calls and the everything that came to our home, our door, like into our home, phone calls and everything, and me being blamed for all of it, made us leave our home and move 50 kilometers away. I could not believe that the same had to happen all over again, but this time for another reason. So, how do I exist? How do I, like, and it got really to a point where I really didn't even want to live. Um, but I am going to say this, that the more people push us, the more we can prevail with love and push back the hate. And I also have sojourned myself to say, if this is how I'm going to go, I am, after all, the Ansh of Bhavani, Gauri Shankara. That is what it is meant to be. But I am not being inauthentic in who I am. And neither am I sitting here and brushing over my religious beliefs or my faith onto you. I am centering my work as my own self, as a transgender Kinnar woman, and my religion, my faith, doesn't guides me, helps me get centered. I'm not bringing that into any of these conversations, but it is a big agenda, because there's a whole lot of money attached, and there's a whole lot of social currency attached when you live in spaces like the Bay Area, which is, the 2-3 words I described spaces like this where I'm not allowed is intentionally helplessness, self-righteousness prevails over anything else, and the idea of being a Hindu is calling for hate if you do enter those spaces. And I can't even begin to start telling you, and I can share a lot about what happens at an organizational level when this space right here is talking on behalf of my entire community. And so, yeah, that is a fact. But I am not going to stop. And I really urge Hindus to really show up for transgender Kinnar folks and not just give us 5 rupees or $5 and move on, because otherwise we are not going to get any support from anywhere. And that is exactly what's playing out right now.
Thank you, Anjali ji. And I agree with everything that you said. Um, there's one quick question, and please, everybody, make your own closing comment. I think we tell a little bit over it to you, and it was a wonderful conversation. So what can the question is? So what drives the hate against Hindus in LGBTQ community, and what can be done about it? As far as I'm concerned, join a group like CoHNA. CoHNA does a wonderful job with uh, connecting people and educating and advocating and volunteer. Please volunteer, and all of our voices together makes a difference. LGBTQ, like what we talked about earlier, and what Arshji said, that people who don't understand or have lack of knowledge in our tradition are the ones who are hateful, who are speaking against you, and they're fed by the colonial mindsets. What should be, how you should be. So the best thing that we can do is decolonize ourselves first, learn about ourselves. You see, there is a, I love gardening. You can do a grafting. A grafting is you take one stem from another part and put it on another one, and you get the hybrid of that, but you will never be the root of who you are. The only way that you are who you are and the fruit that you can give is be going back to your own roots and understanding where that chetana, where that power comes to you about. And when you listen to the stories that we talked about here from Hershji, Anjali ji, Deepthi ji, and myself, that the journey that we have been through is from our own experience of dharma, understanding the dharma, embracing the dharma, and living the dharma. So that's my thing, and I will let each of you give your thought, and we can conclude this one. Harji, do you want to go first? Acharya?
Oh, yes, yes. I was just typing. I thought that I have to leave for another meeting. Uh, so, can I say bye right now?
Yeah, any quick comment is fine.
Yeah, I really was planning on staying for an hour. I have another meeting I have to go to.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming.
But
Appreciate all of your input.
good luck, and I hope I get to see you guys again soon. Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Acharya.
Thank you.
Um, Deepthi ji, do you want to say your final words so we can conclude?
Yes. First, thank you so much, Kona, for recognizing this intersection of Hindu and LGBTQ identities and bringing it to the forefront. So, really, really thankful that I'm part of this organization. It has given me a lot of strength in my second coming out process, for sure. I would say we can definitely, all of us can do a better job of one, educating our kids about Hinduism, and educating the next generation, so that they don't have this void. They are strongly rooted in their dharma, and whatever life throws their way, they always go back to their dharmic principles, and they can stay rooted, and they're not easily taken over by people with an agenda or forces with an agenda. That is one thing. The second is definitely from the LGBTQ community. The request is that we as Hindus uh, need to decolonize. So what that means is understanding how dharmic principles are accepting of all forms, and actually create the safe environment for us as LGBTQ people to lead normal lives. We don't need to be glorified. We don't need to be placed on a pedestal, but just being able to accept and absorb us as a part of the society, and accepting of our same-sex relationships, or the transgender community. That is very important for us to feel included and accepted. So we don't need tolerance, we need acceptance and normalization. So I think if the dharmic group, people that believe in Hinduism right now, I think there is a disconnect between people who are like very religious. For them, they don't understand how to integrate the LGBTQ community into the faith. So there is that gap that we would love to kind of bridge, and help with the normalization of the LGBTQ community within the dharmic fold as well.
So, in other words, you're saying don't be a graph, be a tree yourself. So, we don't want a hybrid. Learn about yourself. Don't bring something else that you learn from there and then just impose on us anymore. Just learn about our own, what our tradition says, what our culture says, and then do as it says. So,
Yes,
thank you for that.
both for the people of the LGBTQ community, and also for the rest of the straight folks in the dharmic fold too, right? Like for them to know that we are also as normal as they are, and even our scriptures and our dharma also says the same thing. So there is no disconnect there. So I think there is the societal aspect also that needs a little bit of progress.
Thank you, Deepthi ji. And Anjali ji?
Wow, it's hard to follow Deepthi and also resonate so much to our experiences. There were a few questions, and I just want to bring about by saying that transgender queer people, especially in the South Asian diaspora, whether we are immigrants or from first generation, we are, we have, and we will face a lot of atrocities because of the transphobia and homophobia. So what happens is there's a dynamic of folks that are fighting for various social justice causes, which are rightfully needed and people should fight for them, have been able to impose on a great majority of our community and say, please fight for these causes, we'll come back and fight for you. And that never happens. And one of those fights is to dismantling many things and the perceptions that have been built around Hinduism, the Dharma, and the somewhat negative aspects of it, without highlighting the positive aspects of it, and singling out is the causes, the causes. So that is why it's very easy to recruit LGBTQ folks in all social justice causes that do not actually end up collectively liberating us queer trans folks. With that said, I would also say, that what Deepthi said, to build on that is to, you said the word of grafting and being a tree, not just a shrub or, the branch. I'm going to say that we are all the garden's flowers and we are all the garden's trees. We have a mindset to come to this country, including myself, to become part of the capitalistic world, build our homes, take care of our children, get married, and work in our tech jobs or run our own business and gas stations. That's all wonderful. But unless we collectively come together, it's not going to happen. And how does that look like? Some of the Hindu faith-based organizations, including CoHNA, have actually done demonstrative work of showing up for the LGBTQ communities during the most vulnerable and scariest times, i.e. the pandemic in the last 2.5 years. So you have got to be involved. If you're too scared to be a public Hindu in supporting LGBTQ folks because you don't want to be misconstrued as being gay or transgender, because your family doesn't have that awareness, start there, start the conversation there. But if you shy away from looking at us and saying, oh, that's not my headache, let me tell you that in our religion, if we are talking about accepting all and making it a world for everybody, you all have to do your part. And I'm not asking you to become a belligerent activist like me and screaming from the top of your lungs and being at marches, but I'm asking you to actually be somebody who is going to do your part for the LGBT. Reach out to me, reach out to Deepthi, reach out to Hersh and say, we see you, we love you, and I appreciate the comments in the chat, but I want that love every single day because the hate I get crushes me every single day. And I still stand strong because I haven't done anything wrong. Why should I be the one ashamed of practicing what I practice and existing in the body that I exist? So you can just be that messenger of love. That's what our Dharma teaches. But more importantly, don't shy away from LGBTQ folks saying it's not your business, because it is your business to stand up for fellow Hindus or fellow human beings as a whole. And finally, I'll say, if you are in really woke spaces like the San Francisco Bay Area, really be on the lookout and speak up in your own capacity when this kind of Hindu phobia prevails. It's easiest to target people like me and Deepthi because we are already so marginalized. Very, very easy to target us and erase us. But let me tell you, when we go out and exist, we don't wear our Hinduism in our sleeves. We are just trying to be queer, gay, lesbian, transgender people. And that is enough of attack that we have to live through every single day in this world. So really, really, please, I couldn't beg you more to really stand up as a Hindu for your LGBTQ Hindus and everybody in the queer community, in the trans community, the Kinnars, the Hijras, the Khwajasaras. Our lives are really at risk. I cannot stress more enough to you about that. And thank you for having me on this. I'm sorry I tried my best to hold back my true emotions, but if I can share with my kutumb, with my parivar, I don't know who else I would share with and be able to pour my heart out. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Anjali ji. And it is important that we do hear our struggles and from our own community, because it needs to be said in our own words, into our own community, so they can have a relation. It's not somebody that's sitting outside who are ostracized that are saying something. It's you, me. It could be you. It could be tomorrow, you walking down the street just for being a Hindu, not liked. It doesn't matter. Like, discrimination of any kind should not be allowed, regardless of who you are. So that's the one Dharma says was Daiva Kutumbaka. So yes, I completely agree with you, and lots of love coming from me to you, Anjali ji, and yes, and the thing is, the way that we can work in our own LGBTQ community is that we have to stand our ground, right? We don't allow somebody else to bully into cornering us, because that's basically what happens. This is the funny thing, is that when somebody achieves what they want, they pull the blanket over themselves and they go, "Oh, I am done now. You're not allowed." So this kind of bad mentality exists in human beings. It's a human condition. It's not just a like a right left. That's a very simplistic way of doing it. But that's the way that this colonization works in your mind, because once you're against us or you're with us, you cannot have nuance in your life, because you're such a simple human being with a simple mind. That's not how things work. So the way is, stand up and accept that you are LGBT, you are Hindu, and there's nothing they can do about it, and we're proud of it, and we will demonstrate it being who we are. And I think that is very important. And I think, like I said, like, join organization, like what Anjali ji said, that we have to come together. um, you can be whoever you want to be, but at some point we have to know we are collectively stronger, and we need to be together and stand up for each other, and that makes us a force to be dealt with. And I mean, unfortunately, that's the only way things work in the world. Is that's why it's called Matsya Nyaya. The fish, big fish eating the small fish. So if you keep on, even in the jungle, have you seen? Forget about the jungle. Your cat, when you try to threaten him, he makes himself bigger, right? So we need to make ourselves bigger. I mean, and then challenge them at their own place, and that's the only way we work, and we don't have to hold back. So I really do thank CoHNA for putting this together. Anjali ji, it's so wonderful to hear your part of the conversation and your experiences. It's amazing. And I mean, if I could have a little bit of courage that you have shown in your entire life, I cannot imagine how hard it must have been for you. And I thank you so much for that. And same thing with Deepthi. I don't think it's that simple, and it is definitely a strength that you have demonstrated, that other people can learn from you, and hopefully you have given courage to more people here and outside, to think differently than what they have been told how to think for themselves. So I really thank very much for doing what you've been doing. Continue being the strong members of our society. And I want to just give one mantra. It's Samana mantra from the Rig Veda, where it says, "Let us keep equal, same mind, same heart." It says, "Samana akuti, samana hridayanivaha, samana mastu bhavana yata sa suhasati." Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Happy Pride, everybody, and Namaste. Thank you for joining.
Thank you so much.